congratulations to Botho University for having the vision to invest in such a magnificent facility. It truly is world class. Yeah. Some of you may be wondering about the title, especially the first word, meta-teaching. Well, I'm not surprised because I made it up, right? I thought I'd add to the English language. Unfortunately, I found out later that other people had also made it up. So it has several different meanings. What I wanted it to mean was teaching about teaching. And I borrowed the term from other terms using the word meta. In computing, there's a term called metadata. A lot of tutors around here will recognize the term. I'm going to look at are tutors prepared for teaching the skills that these employability surveys bring up again and again and again. Then I'm going to look at one of the ways in which these issues have been addressed for tutors, in particular postgraduate courses in learning and teaching in higher education, which abound. And then I'm going to look at the one that we have designed and delivered and are developing and continuing to teach at Botho University, the PGCHE. And then we're going to look at some outcomes and some future plans. Before 1988, the number of students in the UK entering higher education between 1970 and 1988, it hovered around 15%. And then the Education Secretary at the time, Kenneth Baker, proposed to double it in 25 years. Okay? But it didn't happen like that. It happened in 6 years. Right? And then in 1992, the polytechnics became universities, so we doubled the number of universities virtually. And so all of a sudden, the universities were faced with a massive change. Large numbers of students with different expectations, students who would not necessarily have gone to university before. Large classes. I mean, I used to lecture to well over 200 students, you know. And it was a real culture shock, a real change for people. And other things were happening. Employers' dissatisfaction with the skills, the graduate skills that universities were producing became more vocal. The workplace was going through radical restructuring with an emphasis on flatter management structures, teamwork, communication skills, responsiveness to customers, flexibility. Appraisal schemes were becoming widespread, which emphasized and assessed people skills as well as technical. So all of these different things were happening. It was like a volcano waiting to explode. And then all of a sudden, people started changing and adapting to this new situation. And it was very, very exciting. I think a lot of this might resonate with perhaps what's going on in Botswana. Similar sorts of situation. And before 1980, you couldn't get a book. No books at all on how to teach in higher education. There were lots of books on education, but they're all to do with teaching in schools, children. Nothing on adult higher education really to speak of. And then all of a sudden, it started happening. So I had this dual interest, my subject. So my publications reflect this. I've got textbooks on my subject, but I've also done several things on learning and teaching. And then in 2007, I retired and developed a relationship with Botho College, as it then was. And now I'm we've developed a PGCHE at Botho University. I'm going to talk a little bit about that and how I think that a lot of the employability skills that people are talking about can be engendered in the students simply by the way that we teach. I'm going to talk about the tutor. But before I do that, let's have a look at a typical survey. I've picked a recent one from the International Herald Tribune. They all basically say the same thing, and it's been going on since 1987 when I first got involved with this. And this was a survey about hiring young bachelor or master's graduates with a focus on large companies. What do employers want, basically? Well, they want a lot, don't they? You know, sometimes you think an oven-baked graduate, shrink-wrapped, ready to go into the chair and start working. But it turns out that personality, which Miss Priya was talking about earlier on, behaviour, are more important than know-how for the employer. I think that's a bit of an overstatement. An employer obviously expects a computing graduate to know about computing, or an accounting graduate to know about accounting, but it's almost a given. But personality and behaviour are important. And in the long term, the most essential qualities are adaptability, communication skills, and ability to work in a team. And all of these surveys point to the same thing, and it's cropped up again and again and again. throughout the morning. So, I'm talking about the classroom here. I'm not talking about the high-level government policy initiatives and so on. How can the tutor help in this? Are the tutors prepared for teaching their subject, first of all? Often not. Tutors often come from, they're experts in their subject, and often they're put in front of a classroom and expected to teach. They're not prepared for it. Are tutors prepared for teaching these soft skills? Perhaps, perhaps not. Depends on their experience. Some tutors may have been through a university themselves where they never had experience to group work, never had to make a presentation. So how do they go about it? And whose responsibility is it anyway? This touches on what people were talking about this morning. Rory mentioned it, Priya mentioned it. Is it the tutor's responsibility? Is it the students'? Is it the careers advisors? Or is it extracurricular activities? Is it a work placement? Or should there be a special module which deals with all of these different skills? And I think the answer is everything. And what's happened is we've seen so far this morning that they agree, everything. But the tutor has got a responsibility. It's no, I think the tutor has a responsibility. Often, I've come across situations where a tutor will say to me, "Oh, no, it's nothing to do with me. That's the careers officer's job. I'm here to teach my subject. Just leave me alone. Just leave me alone. I don't want to do any of this. I don't know anything about it. I'm not qualified." So, how can we do it? Well, the normal way in which people have done it in the past is to put on a teaching course for teachers. And I'm going to talk about the UK here. And a lot of it is similar, I think, in Botswana. But if you wanted to teach in a school in the UK, you have to have a teaching qualification. You have to have a postgraduate certificate in education. There's no way about it. Although the government at the moment are in a lot of trouble with free schools where they're having teachers with no qualifications teaching it, and they're ending up in a lot of difficulty. But generally speaking, if you want to teach in a school, you have to have a postgraduate certificate in education. But teachers in higher education and universities, there's no requirement for it at all, and there never ever has been. There's no requirement for a tutor to have any training in how to teach. And my view is that it's amazing from all of these courses. The first one is the tutors. This is what the content of the course is. There's a common concepts in all of them. Reflective practice, which is thinking about what you're doing and evaluating it and acting upon it. Constructive alignment, which some of you may not know what it is, but it's basically a theory, if you like, proposed by John Biggs, who is one of my heroes. I have heroes too. Basically, the whole of the quality assurance system in the UK, and I'm sure in Botswana, is underpinned by this idea of constructive alignment, where learning outcomes are geared to learning activities and assessment. It's a very simple concept, but very powerful. Also, another concept is student approaches to learning, how students learn, how they approach their learn. So there's things like learning styles and approaches to learning, which isn't necessarily the same as a learning style. The scholarship of teaching, which is the research involved in teaching. There's a lot of research goes on to teaching and learning in higher education. Institutional research. South Africa's very big in it. There's an institution for institutional research. An association for institutional research in South Africa, which is very active, and assessment-driven learning, which is really about feedback, the importance of feedback. And that cuts across with the USEM model, where one of the elements in the USEM model is the E, which is about efficacy, your own view of yourself, and feedback is very important in that element of that particular model. Oh dear, right, okay, sorry about that. Okay, so why did we develop our own course? Well, we looked around and we thought, actually, there are some available, but we couldn't get hold of them. And they weren't really appropriate, so we developed our own. In particular, there was nothing out there about quality. quality environments in Botswana and partner institutions. A lot of the places in Botswana do franchise courses. Somebody at the back was mentioning franchise courses. So we thought, well, we put a bit about that in. How does a franchise teacher's quite limited, straitjacketed in what they do? So, because they have a certain thing. And so we thought quality environments, the higher education in Botswana is quite small. Tutors might well get involved in quality activities. They might be on quality panels. They might need to know about that sort of thing, about self-assessment documents. So we put on some special modules. I'm going to run out of time. I'm very sorry about this. So what we decided to do in this course is to get the tutors to think differently about how they teach. Right? And this is where the employability skills come in. The whole main purpose of my presentation is that by teaching in a certain way, these employability skills, these interpersonal soft skills, are embedded in what you're doing. Right? They're part and parcel of the classroom. And we take really Biggs's levels of teaching, his ideas about how tutors think about teaching. And the first one is a level 1 focus. Which is very unreflective, and basically I'll summarise it because I'm running out of time. Basically, a level 1 teacher goes into the lecture theatre, delivers what they've done, the tutors take notes, and that's it. Totally unreflective. If the students don't turn up, that's their fault, right? Nothing to do with me as a tutor. I just do my stuff, and then, if the students fail, that's their lookout. So it's the student's fault. There's no reflection by the tutor. The level 2 tutor, most tutors, I think, are level 2. I've got a lot of level 2 in me. And the responsibility for getting it across now rests, to a large extent, with the teacher. They develop an armoury of skills, a skill set. And they use these skills to teach. And that's the level 2. And that's also what Biggs calls a deficit model, which is the blame this time is on the teacher. It's not the student, it's the teacher. But what we try to show our students is that there is a level called level 3, which is about what the student does. And this sees teaching as supporting learning, which turns it on its head. And basically, what we do is we basically say, these are the learning outcomes. How can we do it? What are the activities that we can get the students to do which will aid them in achieving these learning outcomes? So it's very activity-based. It doesn't actually remove the concept of a lecture. A lecture is an activity. Sometimes, often lectures are important. But we turn it on its head so that basically what we're trying to do is to get the tutors to think reflectively about what learning activities will achieve these learning outcomes. And so what we do is we teach it in a particular way. It's taught in block weeks. It's very student-centred. So we use techniques which the tutors can then use with the students and also foster soft skills. So it's taught in such a way. The whole idea is that a class, my view is that the best learning takes place when the student doesn't realise they're learning. They're doing something. They're so engrossed in it that they're learning without realising it. So the course that we put on has got a lot of group work. The tutors are in learning sets. There's a lot of presentations. There's verbal, visual posters, there's quizzes, there's reflection in terms of diaries, there's research where they have to reference journals and critique them, there's peer observation, the tutors observe each other teaching, there's technology and the use of a virtual learning environment which the university's invested in called Blackboard, and so there's a lot of different activities going on. So it's very, very active. And there they are. Some of the tutors might recognise themselves. This was the first group. And in fact, if you look at the window on the right, you see the space in the window? Can you see it? This building has taken that space. Right. And the outcomes. So far, 22 have graduated in Gaborone. 25 have completed. We have 2 current batches. And several graduates have since engaged with educational research. If you look at tomorrow's parallel sessions, 7 out of the 24 parallel sessions involve graduates or students from this course. And we haven't evaluated it formally yet, but we intend to. But anecdotal evidence is that students and tutors have benefited